We're delighted today to have the opportunity to speak to Dominique Senequier, President of Ardian, and Thierry de Montbrial, founder of IFRI, the French international relations think tank. First, I'd like to ask your views on the situation in Ukraine. And Thierry, how has the return of war to Europe changed your feelings about the outlook for Europe in the medium term and in the long term?
Well, since it was a total surprise, of course, it changes a lot the way we look at Europe and its future with, of course, the Euro-Asian continent, but the rest of the world. So whatever the end of this conflict is, the United States, I think, will become even more dominant in the European Union and in Europe, Western Europe in general. And we will have to face in Europe many issues among ourselves because the governance of the European Union will be even more difficult than it is now. So we will have to rethink the way we look at the governance of Europe itself. And also the way we look at the rest of the world, because we are likely to be more involved in the competition between the US and China. And we will have hard choices to make at a time when the rest of the world doesn't want to be involved directly in the competition. I'm thinking particularly of East Asia, where most countries do not want to be forced to choose between the US and China.
Two major facts, just to complement what Thierry was saying, is first, I think Russia will no longer be in any kind of integration with Western Europe. If we look at Germany, Germany was somewhere integrated in terms of energy supply, in terms of outsourcing of IT, and I think that's the end, and it's the end for long term. The second point maybe is our international organization like the United Nations Security Council or even the Cour Pénale Internationale. We just saw that it was not functioning to stop quickly a war. It was a hope at the beginning. There was resolution, if you remember, 16th of March, but China and Russia voted against. And so for our young people, it's not a good example. It's not giving them hope on how the world is functioning.
I'd like now, if I may, to ask you both about the economic environment and the question which is on many people's minds. So Dominique first. After decades of falling interest rates, do you think we've entered a new economic environment? And if so, what does that imply for our economies and our societies?
Yes, it is a new era. It's a new era because the deglobalization is entering in a big way. The globalization was built about optimization of prices. So inflation is there to last, maybe not at the level that we are seeing now, which is above 6%, maybe it will be divided by 2. But nevertheless, it will stay. And so our long-term interest rates have to increase because we have seen maybe the higher level of short-term interest rates. But we need certainly to have long-term interest rates, which will be 2-3 points above what they are now. And it will change the cost of borrowing for home. There are already consequences on the price of some real estate. So inflation is there to last, and to last maybe not as high as now. And interest rates long-term need to raise to face and to be above what will be the long-term inflation. So yes, it's a completely different environment.
Well, I fully agree with Dominique. I would add that historically speaking, it will be just going back to normalcy because what was an exception was actually the last 25 years or 30 years since the collapse of the Soviet Union, since the huge neoliberal move towards globalization, the flat world of Thomas Friedman, the entering of China in WTO, etc., etc. So deglobalization is unlikely, fortunately, to go to the extreme unless some catastrophe happens. But there will be some more deglobalization. States will be more important for the management of the economy. So yes, interest rates are bound to stay relatively high. Inflation hopefully will be mastered, but as Dominique said, unlikely to go as low as those we have seen the last few years. But we should not also forget that the technological change is still going on. There is still some acceleration of the technological revolution, and this will have also impact on real economy, real interest rates, and so forth and so on. So we have to remain quite open to the coming changes. The world is going to change a lot in the next 10 years or so.
And Dominique, what does this new economic environment mean for Ardian as a company?
For Ardian, it means taking a very long-term view on our investments in real estate, in infrastructure, assuming that the long-term rate could increase quite a lot. And so modelization will be different. As you know, for real estate, we have been always focused on prime location, so we'll still go on prime location, but taking really long-term rates much higher than what they are now. And for private equity, it means also that you have to focus on companies which are excellent at adapting to all kinds of changes. So you need to focus on what is the security of their supply chain, how they can pass the inflation on their costs to the distributor or to the final buyer. We saw it already in the portfolio that some companies could do it quickly, some other companies had 2 years to pass the increase of prices. So we need to focus on certain elements of the business where we were less anxious before. So it's a different, let's say, maybe analysis of the companies. You have always to rely on the top managers. And the top managers of company always need to be very good and certainly even better in a rapidly changing environment. This is very, very important. We've always focused on the quality of the management of companies. More than ever, we need also to have a diversified turnover of companies, not to be focused, we don't like to be focused only on one country, and so we continue currently to help companies to grow in US, to grow in Southern Europe, Northern Europe. Wherever we can grow and buy complementary build-ups, we do it. So I think it won't change, let's say, the sub-expertise that we have, but of course the parameters will change, and we have already adapted and we will continue to adapt. But you know, risk, opportunities, it is the base of our business. So we will go on, and the strategy will be certainly as successful as before.
Thank you both for taking the time today to share your thoughts with us on these two important questions. Thank you, Dominique and Thierry.